how do we start healing? Because we've talked about accountability. You've made some really great points of, like you said, you knew who you were getting in a relationship. I think a lot of times we do, but then I think sometimes everybody brings their best representative, like I said. So you could have had someone that was starting out, they amazing when you were dating, they checked off all the boxes, even in the first year of marriage, but then something switches. I know women that have been in long-term relationships and now they're like, this is not even a person that I know anymore. And they have walked out on their children. I like to create a peaceful environment for my husband. I always have, but not just for him, for me. And then when my children were growing up, definitely coming out of a toxic, abusive, domestic type of relationship, I got a divorce because I wanted them to have some peace. I knew what it came with, but I knew what staying would do even more. So, how do we move forward? We talked about the accountability piece. How do we start breaking some of the cycles without repeating them? Because I see it being repetitive, not only just with Black men, but even Black daughters against their moms. And it just
Yeah,
seems like this
yeah.
phenomena that moms are now this endangered species, just not quite understanding why there's so much of an attack on moms. So how do we break this cycle? I feel like the millennials, the Gen Zs, they're already in this cycle of wanting to build walls instead of building bridges. But how do we change that for this next generation coming in?
hmm Um, if we acknowledge that the patriarchy, where things are male and men centered, and much of society was shaped around the patriarchy, and we can highlight all the flaws of it. There may have been some potential benefits, but there were probably some potential flaws. There's probably no other community that further resembles anything closer to a matriarchy in being gynocentric than the Black community by far. The stats say by far we're the closest thing to a matriarchy, maybe arguably in the world, let alone in our
Mm-hmm.
country.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have to first acknowledge and start with the outcomes. If we're saying men are leaving and men are giving up and men ain't there and men ain't this, the data and stats say 70% of all relationships, particularly marriages, are being initiated by women.
Mm-hmm.
And it's as high as 80% if they're college educated.
Mm-hmm.
So you may have these outlier cases where a
Mm-hmm.
mom was really good or a man just walked out on a really good woman and this, and that. Fair. I'm not gonna ever lie and tell you you ain't that's a lie. That's not true. It clearly is true. It's the exception doesn't make the rule.
Yeah.
We are a matriarchy. If we are functionally more gynocentric in nature and we're having these outcomes, we have to get to a place that we have to be open to the possibility that maybe a lot of this anger and frustration and vitriol maybe isn't being communicated well.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it is you, 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 you can't have this structure, have
Mm-hmm.
these outcomes, and say everybody's doing a great job.
Right.
Something the math ain't mathing.
Yeah.
Something is off. So you're
Yeah.
saying, well, what do we need to identify? What do we
Mm-hmm.
need to do? How do
Mm-hmm.
we need to fix these two things?
Yeah. Like, what does that inner work look like for all of us?
Yes, two movies, especially for this audience that I want everybody to go see if they haven't, and they're staples for a lot of people in the Black community. Soul Food and
Mm-hmm.
Losing Isaiah. Some of my
Mm.
favorite all-time movies. That was Halle Berry's person that was, to me, that was her greatest acting ever with Losing
Mm-hmm.
Isaiah.
Mm-hmm.
I, I could do a whole film just on Losing. I mean, do a whole podcast on just Losing Isaiah if we ever do something like that. The reason why those two films to me are exactly where we need to start before we start talking about prescriptions on what men and women or children or whoever needs to do this. Soul Food was so great because it was a movie about a grandmother who would always have her family coming around each Sunday for
Mm-hmm.
for for lunch or dinner, and she would cook all this soul food and gather her family, and she was the matriarch. Everybody would come to grandmom's house, and a lot of people a little bit older than me my parents' generation and older, we used to talk about how, like, how much community they had, and people would go
Mhm.
to people's homes, and this person was the cook, and that was like a really, really big thing where
Every
everybody would,
Sunday.
especially on Sundays,
Yep.
to either their mother's or their grandmother's home, and that was
Mhm.
a thing.
Mhm.
Throughout the movie, though, obviously for those, and I'm going to spoil it. Spoiler alert for those who haven't seen it.
Who
Grandma,
never saw that?
grandmom's going to get sick, and she gets a limb amputated, and that came about as a result of the diet of the food that she was cooking. And eventually, when she got out the hospital, she went right back to eating and cooking the same stuff that she was. And before you know it, grandmom didn't make it to the end of the movie. And the family, in honor of grandma, sought to continue the tradition of cooking the very same thing that took her from her family and was actually killing her. I would offer that as loving and as caring and as good as grandmom was, she was unknowingly doing things that was not only harming her, but increasing the chances for there being distance or her not being able to remain with her family.
Mhm.
For many mothers that are now older and well into the years where their kids are adults or their kids are having kids,
Mhm.
they may have unknowingly been doing certain things, saying certain
Mhm.
things,
Mhm.
treating their children in certain patterns that being a loving mother with good intentions
Mhm.
felt right in the moment. But if you're now experiencing the consequences of those said choices, now in the movie, she's losing limbs, she's
Yeah.
but in real life, if it's highly unlikely that a child that grows up in a healthy, stable environment for the duration of their childhood and doesn't have any significant mental health diagnosable conditions
Mhm.
drops off the map and wants nothing to do with their parents. Highly
Mhm.
unlikely. Very rare, actually. Very rare.
Disagree. I disagree with that, Jeff, but go
I'm,
ahead.
I'm gonna tell you, it's highly unlikely because,
Okay.
and I'm using my words very carefully. What I'm saying, if they're growing up in a healthy,
Mhm.
stable
Mhm.
environment where
Mhm.
they have and are getting what they need from two parents, two sources of influence, it's highly unlikely, unless there is a mental health diagnosable reason for why this person has detoured and started showing borderline personality tendencies, showing
Hmm.
bipolar tendencies, showing narcissistic personality tendencies. That's a diagnosable issue that clearly could be radically distinct from whether or not you had good parents or not. So what
Yeah.
I'm suggesting is, unless the person is exhibiting and showing those type of traits and signs that a licensed professional psychiatrist or psychologist or clinician would be able to better see, more than likely they are grandmom in soul food. They may be doing things that everybody loves in the moment, that felt good, that's bringing everybody together, and they may be unaware of
Mhm.
potential things that they were doing or how they were moving. They were doing it for the sake of love. They were doing
Yeah.
it because they were nurturing. They were doing it because they thought they were protecting their child. They don't learn the consequences of some of those choices until after their child is old enough to be able to articulate and finally be able to respond to
Mhm.
it. In the Black community, many people, when they get older, say a lot of Black parents treat feedback as disrespect.
Mhm. Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that.
That's I would put money on it that it's most.
Yeah, I've seen that. I have no problem with feedback. It's the way that it's delivered. You
Mhm.
can come and express yourself. You can come and tell me like, "Mom, when I asked you this, you said this and it was a little harsh." And I will check myself. I have no problem doing that. But it's the way I believe the feedback comes back. So, um
I agree with. I received that, and I agree with it. But I will add this additional counterpoint that doesn't negate what you said. But I'll
mhm.
say this: if a man was the constantly doing you dirty and treating you wrong,
Mhm.
or not, holding up his end of the bargain,
Mhm.
and it isn't, or he get caught cheating for the fourth time, fifth time. He
Mhm.
keeps saying, "Babe, I'm gonna go get a job. I'm gonna go get a job," and you finally start to pull back. You finally start to emotionally get detached. and you're no longer valuing the relationship like you used to. Why is it, and women say this all the time, why is it that I finally start to not care and I'm so angry that I finally ready? Now he want to change.
Wants
Now
to
he
change.
want to talk. Now he wants to do all the things that I would have loved for him to have provided the space and started to do when I most valued and needed it.
That's a good point.
Most Black moms aren't interested and open to hearing that until their kids become adults.
Mhm. Mhm.
If you're waiting to hear about what type of mother you were
Mhm.
only when your child became an adult, don't be shocked if they've now started to become more emotionally detached, where they've
Mhm.
started to put some distance between you and them. Because
Okay.
when they were a kid and stuff is happening, because we're not perfect kids and we're not perfect parents,
At all. Mhm.
why was it that we only thought to provide the opportunity to ever hear and get the performance evaluation, hear about ourselves, hear about the external audits
Mhm.
when our kids are adults?
Mhm. Mhm.
If you wait too long to ever hear anything or welcome feedback about hearing something you may not want to have been favorable, don't be shocked when you're getting all of this pushback, vitriol, bitterness, because the time period of when you probably could have heard it in a much more palatable way when it was happening, when they
Mhm.
were younger, when you could have still done something about it.
Mhm. Mhm.
In the Black community specific, and I've heard it in the Asian community, I've heard it in the
Mhm.
Hispanic community, and I've heard it in the Black community. I don't know enough about the white community to say,
Right, right.
what mom says goes.
I feel like in the white community, their children set a standard where they did tell their parents how to feel in comparison to how we are. But guess what? 80, probably 80% of my followers on
Mhm.
Mom's True Tea are white women that are experiencing the same thing.
Well, like just the idea that we never even thought about the idea. Well, I'm asking, I'm
Mm-hmm.
inquiring,
Mm-hmm.
I'm reaching out. Why aren't they
Mm-hmm.
telling me? Or why
Mm-hmm.
this or why that? It could potentially be the
Mm-hmm.
guy who waited too long to start to actually put the work in and actually receive the feedback and actually start talking and actually start sharing and start
Mm-hmm.
making changes based on said feedback. You're waiting too long. And then
Mm-hmm.
when she finally leaves the relationship or breaks up with you, now you want to say, I've changed. Now I'm different. So as moms,
Mm-hmm.
if we're not perfect and we're human like everybody else,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we have to reevaluate and wonder, did I wait too long to actually
Mm-hmm.
be open to feedback? And these are some questions when you say, well, what do we do about it? I have what's called a MAP, MAP, maternal assessment plan. For
Mm-hmm.
moms, these are a list of questions that you may want to reflect on, process, and it would better help you to open up the possibility of understanding these feelings and emotions that don't seem to make sense why they're coming at you the way that they are.
Okay. That's fair.
Do I want to be a better person and mother than I was before? For
Mm-hmm.
many moms, or have I concluded that there's no room for growth in this area of my life?
Mhm. Mhm.
You work out because you want to improve on your health. You change your
Mhm.
diet because you want to improve on what nutrients you're taking in your body. But when did you decide I want to be a better mom than I was previously? And
Right.
who gets to help you do that more so than the people who you
Who
are
have
mothering to?
experienced you. Mhm.
Or who is allowed to do a performance evaluation of Black women and mothers if they're the matriarchs? If they're
Mm.
the matriarchs where feedback is interpreted as disrespect if you're a child,
Mhm.
if
Mhm.
husbands are saying happy wife, happy life,
Mhm. Which
if
I hate
everybody
that
that says
term.
something about moms or Black women specifically, oh, it's because you hate your Black mother, it's because you don't respect Black women, then when does the self audit, then when does the actual audit begin?
Mhm.
Have I unknowingly attached my self worth and value to feedback, which is why
Mhm.
I might have been reluctant to ever seek it?